Nappy. How's the surf out on the North Shore?
See, I don't know.
Hey, mate.
Gotta be better than this.
Hey, mate. Where's it
Who's guy
working?
talking to?
Be talking to you, Bell.
What do you mean working? I'm not working. I'm sitting down here, relaxing.
No, where's the surf? The waves?
The surf. Oh, you mean the surf? I don't can understand you guys funny kind of language. That's for the surf. That's where it's working.
You must be kidding. I've seen better surf than the outback.
What's the matter? You know, can see? All you gotta do is put a dime in here.
Are you serious? That's out of sight. Too much.
Hey, where you going, bro?
Where it's working.
Hey, Nick, you think he's seen something?
Oh, he sure did.
What he saw?
Take a look for yourself. You probably saw where it's working.
Hey, what are those places?
Those are the places we went to on our trip last year, Nappy. My family and I met with Galen Wilcox and his family and had an adventure that finally saw us camping and surfing our way completely around the world. Galen and I had always looked longingly at maps and globes of the world, wondering about the miles and miles of coastlines and perhaps hundreds of perfect breaks, undiscovered and unsurfed, just waiting for us.
Hey, where are those places?
That's New Zealand, Nappy. We had to convince our wives. They packed our bags. We loaded our boards and kids and cameras into planes, boats, buses, and trains, and left Hawaii on our first trip on our search for the perfect wave. That began here in New Zealand. And this is it, Nappy. This is where we started our trip. New Zealand's a land of many contrasts. It's got glaciers, or it's got thermal valleys. And it's got a lot of surf. It's got beautiful scenery, some fantastic fishing, and it's got beautiful surf. It's got snow-capped mountains, rugged farm country, quaint little towns, and it's got some beautiful surf, Nappy.
What they doing?
That's an agricultural plain, Nap. Wherever you go, you see agriculture. Farming's the main business of the people down there, and they all farm sheep. In fact, there are 20 sheep to every people. It's a darn good thing they don't surf. 90 million sheep in this country. And the kids grew up learning about sheep from one end to the other. These people can shear a sheep in sometimes less than a minute. And they keep this up all darn day. They go in full of fur, they come out naked. How you figure that? That's what they should do to the hippies down here.
Oh, yeah, boy.
The New Zealanders were terrific, Nappy. Of all the countries we went to, they were the friendliest. And such a beautiful country they have down there, and some mighty fine surf at this spot called Harding Road. The New Zealanders are getting with it. And outside in our first big surf, coming up in December, Gaylor got down to find some of the outstanding surf in a place called Harding Road in Napier. At one time, they used to get some fantastic big surf in here, but then they built a breakwater, and this is about all that sneaks through. Crisp, long lines, but boy, let me tell you, that water is cold, about 60 degrees. This is visiting Australian Johnny Spence getting his head wet, and these are the first waves he's had in New Zealand since he left Noosa Heads, and he wasn't disappointed.
Turning on, man.
Now Johnny was getting a little used to that cold water, still a little tight, but he's having fun.
They get mini boards up there now.
Well, this is what they're riding. Well, after Harding Road, we decided we'd have a quick beer and hit the road. But in New Zealand, the darndest thing, you see these tanker trucks pull up to the pubs down there, and it looks like they're pumping gas in. But let me tell you, brother, that's all beer. It goes in one end and comes out bottled white tomato beer. So we're gonna head up north looking for more surf, and we thought we'd hit some isolated beaches. But boy, when people camp in New Zealand, they all go to the same place at the same time. It looks like a concentration camp.
Throw me off, boy.
Well, the New Zealanders are outdoor people, but they love to camp together, and this was a little bit too much for us. So we thought we'd outfox them. But the next beach we hit was the same thing. More people, more tents, more cars. So we headed for the mountains. If they were all at the beach, the mountains had to be empty. And we knew we could find a little stream or a beautiful lake and get some of that famous New Zealand trout fishing in. And all by ourselves. All by ourselves. Well, the crowds were there too.
You should have took your thrown net up there.
Yeah, well, we left the mountains, and it was getting near Christmas. So we wanted to find a little place where we could camp ourselves and hope Santa Claus would find us, maybe even bring us a few waves. And this was it. Horseshoe Bay, up on the east coast, a very isolated spot on the North Island. Our own little Christmas grounds, complete with nice little surf, warm water, friendly people, and our own giant Christmas tree to camp under. And boy, were the kids happy when they found out Santa Claus knew we were in New Zealand, mighty far away from Hawaii, but he still managed to get us. The kids were stoked. They didn't care what they got for Christmas. But poor Dad had to play with the kids' presents until look what he got, a new sled. But there's 5-year-old David, the first one to test it out. And he found that it was a secret board. It really picked up speed in the whitewater. Let's try that again, David.
Should be doing a little roller coaster in a little while.
He's almost there, Nappy. Well, we pushed off. We'd heard a lot about the surf on the other side of the island. And you drive across to the Tasman Bay and around a point wrapped the fantastic long lines of Raglan. This is every surfer's dream. An uncrowded beach, look at that. No people, no houses. You walk through a beautiful little meadow, flowers and sheep to get down to the point. And no one's there. We've got it all to ourselves this morning. Small, uncrowded, perfect lines, wrapping hundreds of yards around this rocky point in Raglan in the Tasman Sea in New Zealand. And there Gala tested out. The water's a little bit cold in Hawaii, so he wears a wetsuit. But the good conditions made it worthwhile. Nobody else out. Here we were, thousands of miles from home, in our own little paradise.
How's that new yellow board you got?
That was a New Zealand board, Nappy. I picked it up down there. It was a good little machine. Well, we came in for breakfast and we watched the lines peel around the point. And finally some of the old-timers came down there. Hey, look at that fishing bird in the background. Well, the Kiwis get mighty hot when they're down here. And this old-timer had been surfing Raglan. Probably one of the first surfers down here. He hasn't changed his style much. If you don't make the waves, you get a wipeout. And when they do make them, they get mighty excited. Now, let's try that again, fella. Yeah, that's right, that's right. And all day long, the lines kept pouring through. But you know something, it's sort of like California. In the afternoon, the onshore waves came up, but so did Alan Burns. Drove all the way across from the Pacific coast, across the island, 3 hours drive to get to Raglan. But when Alan got there, he found the waves a little bit blown out. Alan was a junior champ, and he's been to the World Championships and done pretty well. Alan trying to get a little revenge on the surfer that took off in front of him. You'll almost catch him, Alan. Come on. Yeah, got him.
A lot of stones over there.
It's a rocky point, and that's the only problem with it. Well, we were getting ready to come in, and we met some visiting Australians who told us about the surf in Australia. We'd been in New Zealand for quite a while. I'd been there for almost a year. But wherever we were to go, we'd always remember those lines, those long, perfect lines sweeping around that point. Every surfer's dream is just to see a place like this.
Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. As he sang, as he sat, and he waited for his little boy. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Manly Beach and a big summer swell. Manly's probably the hub of Aussie surfing. It's the home of the Queen's Cliff Bombor on the left, the Ferry Bower on the far point, and Snow McAllister, who hosts many a foreign surfer. Although the guy is in his 60s, he's out there when it's working.
The locals have a crack at the Queen's Cliff bombing when it's on, but it's not an easy ride. It's very mean, and the takeoff leaves no room for error. You can get done out there. It's just as easy as anywhere else. I consider the Bower Day one of Australia's best surfs. I recall being out there on the Bower on one day in 1963. It had a perfect shape, the wind and swell were in the right direction, a long, rolling, breaking wave. Big surf is no problem for Midget Farrelly, Nipper Williams, Bob Pike. Like most of the Sydney surfers on the northern beaches, they handle the shore break or the big surf with ease. And you could make every wave on the gunboard used in 1963. Today surfers handle the bow on 6 or 7 foot boards with the same good result. When surf's up, the kids rush out there. They climb on the first wave that comes along. Some end up getting bombed. An occupier caught in the local hospital. It's claimed a few deaths already today. Too many surfers climb on the one wave. It works best on a southeast ground swell. And isn't working properly today. On to Queensland. It's the place to be right now with this swell on. It would be working properly in Queensland with Snapper Rock, Rainbow Bay, Greenmount Point and Kira. When you follow the east coastline of Australia from Sydney to Queensland, it's surfing beaches for the whole 600 miles. But the best spot to check out are Seal Rock, Green Knob, Crescent Head, which is a favourite surf spot, particularly in the early morning. As you move north, you have Ngari at Yamba, then Byron Bay.
And so we took Snow's advice, Nappy, and we headed up the road, across rivers, in our campers, to see thousands of miles of Australian coast. We headed north, because this is where the surf was going to be. We passed the Bowls players, and got the Crescent Head, a break that's supposed to be like Rincon. But when we got there, it was sloppy and blown out. And they told us, you should have been here yesterday. So we headed on. And we got to Angori. And this is what greeted us. But they told us, hey, you should have been here yesterday. These are the pools there, and if the surf's flat, you can always try these for excitement.
Hey, that place just like Waimea Falls, eh?
Yeah, and Peter Ray, wanderlust surfer, photographer, really got high for this one. Kids loved it. Well, we left Angori and we pushed on. We heard there was a cyclone coming, but on the way we stopped at the bird park, the Currumbin Bird Sanctuary, and the kids really loved this too.
Better watch out, boy, with all those birds, they'll probably eat on you.
The bird park is famous for its bird napping, and they told us, well, the birds are trained, but you know how it is.
You gotta do it, you gotta do it.
Well, we finally made it up to the famous Noosa Heads, and right away we looked up seasoned traveler Peter Troy, who lives there. We pulled into Peter's motel at Noosa Heads, and he came out to greet us.
Really is a unique place in surfing in Australia, primarily because the seasons affect the surf greatly because of cyclones, because of weather patterns in the Tasman Sea between New Zealand and the Queensland coast. Tea Tree's, again, a complex surfing place. It's an area where you have one strong section behind the point, Then it's a series of cutbacks into white water, and you have to work off that white water on a cutback to get speed out through the next section, then another cutback, and so on right through to the beach area. Maybe a surf of about 250, 300 yards here. And it wasn't until 1960 that Noosa Heads was first noticed. This was due to lack of facilities in transportation. There was no road into the area directly, and there was about a 14-mile journey down from the main highway that goes right to the north of Australia. Noosa began to come into its own in 1962, 63, when a small band of surfers came in here from New South Wales. There were a few locals and a few people up from Brisbane who surfed the area. Then the magazines exploited it, films exploited it, and the people that were here exploited it. And what was then a paradise rapidly became a weekend trippers haven. There were litter bugs, there were louts, there were every kind of person, thieves, anyone that you could think of, and the area rapidly decreased. Essentially a small surf area. Noosa respects the attention of probably the best surfers in Australia, many of them coming 2 and 3 times a year, simply when they hear that there's cyclonic conditions.
That's Bob McTavish, Nappy. One of the guys that always makes it up to Noosa when the surf is up. Bob's a pioneer at Noosa, probably one of the first guys to surf the place, and he told us about days he had all by himself. But not anymore. Gary Keys came along with him on this trip, and he's getting Noosa wired just as good as Bob is.
National Park is a specialist surf. To be ridden well, the surfer has to understand surfing conditions, because here we have a wave that, although continually breaking off to the right, it does bowl and have its sections, and the rider must continue to have speed in his board to negotiate these, sometimes climbing up into a pocket to drive down and get speed off the bottom of the wave, other times riding around the bottom of the wave to come up and drive on again. Here we see a lot of surfers that don't understand the area, really getting themselves into deep trouble.
Look at the guy rip.
There's one place about this, Nappy. You gotta remember, the rocks are only a few yards away. And there they are. They're always there, the rocks. Bob was one of the pioneers of the shortboards, and he really knows how to handle it. And here's one of the knee boards made famous by George Greeno. Well, we've been in Aussie a long time, Nappy, and we started wondering, getting the wanderlust, wondering what's across the ocean. There had to be someplace else to go. We'd seen thousands of miles of Australia. We checked out surfing spots from Melbourne all the way up to Noosa Heads. We got some pretty good surf. And we wanted to stay. We made a lot of good friends. But someplace else, there had to be a better wave. new uncharted reefs with waves breaking on them. Someplace else to explore.
Gee, Nick, that's a fantastic metal machine, Nick.
Yeah, it's better than surfing movies, isn't it?
Ooh. Where you folks went next?
We went to Mauritius.
Mauritius. Gee, I heard of that place. Where's that?
Hey, if I had a map, I could show you.
Gee, a map. Wait.
Okay.
And here it is, Nappy, right in the middle of the Indian Ocean, the island of Mauritius.
Let me sparkle.
Well, Nappy, come along with us on the next part of our voyage from Australia. And we'll show you what happened on the next trip. We were wondering what we were to see.
Hey, where's that place? Looks something like Hawaii.
It's just like Hawaii, Nappy, but it's in the middle of the Indian Ocean, thousands of miles away from Australia, and in the southern hemisphere, and it's the island of Mauritius. And as we flew in and looked at those coral reefs and the lush green tropical island, we felt like we were coming right back to home, yet we were so far, far away. We were really stoked and we couldn't wait to get our passports checked in. As soon as we were checked in, we unloaded our surfboards. And as we did this, we knew there weren't many surfers on the island of Mauritius because people looked at us with some mighty strange glances. We loaded up our families and we drove through the marketplaces in the evening and headed straight to the beach. The place we headed for was Tamarind Bay. We'd heard a lot about it, Nappy. There's supposed to be some fantastic surf there, and this was our first stop. We didn't even know what the island looked like. We didn't know what the water was like or what the break was like, and we could barely see it when we got there. By the time we waxed up and loaded our camera gear, the sun was setting. But we went out anyhow. We'd been on a plane a long, long time, and we just couldn't wait to get wet. The water was warm, 87 degrees, and we went out and got locked into some late evening curls in Tamarind Bay on the island of Mauritius in the middle of the Indian Ocean. First night out, and we didn't know what was there except some mighty fine little curls. As the sun set, we paddled in and walked up the beach, Nappy, and we were wondering what the next day would hold for us. We knew knew there was surf in Mauritius, but we'd been pretty conservative out there our first night. The bottom seemed shallow, but it was too dark to really see. And we walked up the beach in the warm air, so different from Australia, and we talked about it, wondering what the bay looked like, and wondering what the next day, what the next few weeks in this new island paradise would hold for us. Would this be the place that we'd find the waves that we were looking for? We only thought about it, and we waited for tomorrow to see. When we woke up, this is the view we saw. An island that looked just about like Hawaii, yet no surfers, Nappy, not one surfboard in sight. But being by the sea, the people make their living from the ocean, and the same fish nets were there, and the same warm water. And as we walked out, it looked to us like even better waves than we'd ever seen before. The waves break on a coral reef here at Cape Doll, and it's shallow. A nasty, shallow, mean reef, which we were to find out you don't want to fool around with, Nappy. In the daytime as we paddle out, you could look through the crystal clear water, and these waves are breaking sometimes in less than 1 foot of water. Gayla was the first out, and the first one to test these Mauritius combers. The peaks in the background reminded us of Tahiti.
Hey, this place look better than Ala Moana.
Nappy, it was just so fantastic we couldn't believe it. We were pretty conservative the first days we went out there because no one else was there. Absolutely no one. Here we were, halfway around the world from Tahiti and Hawaii. And as far as we knew, there just weren't any other surfers in the Indian Ocean. And look at Gayla rip. The spooky thing about this place, Nappy, is that every time you took off on a wave, you looked right down and you saw that jagged coral reef right below you, and you played it pretty darn safe. There were times when we made bottom turns, and you could see the coral heads boiling up in front of you. When the surf was flat, we dove this place quite often, and we had a mighty healthy respect for the jagged coral bottom below us. Even when this place was small, breaking as small as 2 or 3 feet, the curls would be so hot and clean, and so much juice that you could ride the place. And the only reason was because it was so shallow. But the bigger it break, the further out it would break, and a little bit safer it would be for us to ride. Here's Gayla doing his thing in Mauritius.
It's a nice wall, boy.
This is typical of many of the walls that we had, Nap.
Get any sharks up there you gotta worry about?
Well, we'd heard all kinds of stories, but you never knew. But you just don't want to lose your board. Whoops, there goes Gayla. And what a minute. All of a sudden we were surfing, and who should paddle out but another guy. We couldn't believe it, and he couldn't believe it when he saw us. But as it turned out, it was Darcy Neal, an Australian who had the softest job you could believe. Darcy was a steward for Qantas Airlines, and he worked in Mauritius. At least he was based there, and he worked for 2 days a week. Darcy couldn't believe it when he saw us, and we couldn't believe it when we saw Darcy. And he told us, let me show you the rest of the island, and we'll find some better surfing spots. And so we headed in and loaded up our boards in Darcy's car, and went off to tour Mauritius and to see what the island had to offer. Every place you go, Nappy, you see people carrying things on their heads. They wash their clothes in the rivers, they bathe in the rivers, they get their water from the rivers. We came to take a bath in the river, but we found wash day to be a little too crowded for us. And when I say crowded, on an island about the size of Maui, you've got over 800,000 people. Most of them are Indians, Nappy, brought from India to work on the sugar plantations in Mauritius. And here we go again.
No, looks just like Hawaii, boy, yeah?
It sure does, with sugar plantations all over the island. It's tropical, and it's just like Hawaii. Miles of untouched, beautiful lagoons. Pretty little bays. Waves breaking on reefs with no one riding them. Thatched houses. Crystal blue waters. And everywhere you see people carrying things in their heads. There's Basket Head.
Should let him try carrying one surfboard on the head.
When that happens, it's time to leave Mauritius. Well, Darcy's took us on a trip and decided we'd check out some new surfing spots. Here's a spot called Bay de Cap. Never been surfed before, Darcy assured us. And it looked like there was a swell, and we were game to try it out. So we flipped to see who would handle the camera, and it turned out to be me. And as I set up, the crowds gathered, which was typical of every place we went in Mauritius, and typical of the Indian Ocean. The crowds couldn't believe what was happening, because they'd never seen it before. You don't want to lose your board out here, as Darcy will tell you.
One thing good about when you get two guys go out together.
Well, when we came in, Darcy tried to teach these guys to surf. They were game to learn on the beach, but try and get them in the water. No thanks, they said. No thanks. So we loaded our boards, and they pushed off. There are a lot of cars in Mauritius, but not much gas. Here's Grass Head.
This guy's too much, boy.
Well, we hit another spot. Across the bay from Tamarin, Cape Dal, we found this beautiful little spot called Little Volmar, and Darcy takes off on the first wave. Crisp, clean little waves with no one else out. No one else, as far as we knew, else out in the entire Indian Ocean. Surf was small at Cape Dal in the background. We just paddle across the bay to Little Volmar and ride these perfect little rights. Darcy Neal from Australia. Darcy showed us how it was or wasn't done, and told us he had to go to work in a few days, so we'd better start checking out the island and see what happened. There's Box Head, and Scrub Brush Head, and Burlap Bag Head, and Basket Head, and Newspaper Head.
Oh, hey, what's this?
Surfboard Head.
It throw me off, man.
Well, when you start carrying surfboards on your head there, Nappy, you know it's time to leave. Darcy had to go to work on a flight to South Africa, and we thought we'd head along too. But on our last night, we went out for some late evening curls. And this is typical of what we found just about every evening as we paddle out to the evening glass off at Cape Doll, Tamarin Bay, the island of Mauritius, in the middle of the Indian Ocean with no one else around for thousands of miles. These tiny little waves breaking on a crisp reef. Lots of juice, and always something to ride. These waves just went forever. I don't think there's any place in the world you can find a wave so long, so clean, so powerful.
Nobody in a way.
Yeah, at the same time so small. And nobody there. But Darcy had to make the flight to Africa, and we decided we'd push on.
Like Hawaii again.
This is the next island we went to, Nappy. This is the island of Réunion. It's a French possession, and again, it's in the Indian Ocean, and most people don't even know it exists. And what a lucky thing for us. It's got mountains towering 10,000 feet up into the sky. It's got a rugged coastline, which everybody said there's no surf on. Got beautiful little bays. It's got tropical fishing villages, and it looks just like Hawaii again. And wherever you go, where the warm sea is, people make their living from the ocean. But we were making our living from the ocean in a different way, looking for surf. And the surf came. When we got to Réunion, a tropical cyclone came. And the people in these islands in the ocean dread the tropical cyclones. But we looked with interest for them. And as it was approaching us, we saw the direction heading to Mauritius, which we just left. And they predicted it to veer towards Réunion. So we struck out, looking for the coastline that would be possibly coming up with surf from the cyclone. We found the point called St. Leo, a point on the map that we had looked at. It looked like a good possibility, which is all we had to go on.
It's pretty good, boy, out there.
And so we set up things and paddled out. Gala was the first off, and the wave has probably never been ridden, and we doubt if it's been ridden since. St. Leu, the island of Réunion, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And I'll tell you, Nappy, when you ride a place like this, you don't want to lose your board, because you don't know what's underneath you, and you've got all kinds of wild ideas of what's swimming around there with you.
Like Hawaiian boys out there.
Yeah, just like they're out setting their nets. the cyclone approached, the waves got bigger. Every wave you caught, you wondered what's underneath you, especially when the fishermen leave the water. And when they leave, you come in too. There's no company when you're in these islands. In this case, Gayla was filming and I was surfing, or I would film and Gayla would surf. So you're one guy out there, and you're all alone. But still, you can't help enjoying yourself. Especially when you get some waves like this, all alone, no one else around. This is the thing we just couldn't get over, Nappy. If this had been Hawaii, or California, or any place else, there'd been hundreds of guys out. But here we were on a break that had probably never been ridden before, and we wondered who the heck the next guys would be to enjoy this waves that we had. We left St. Leu and we looked for other spots. We camped at some beautiful beaches, but we couldn't find anything better than this spot at St. Leu, and we always kept coming back here. And as we came back, no matter what time of the day, the kids would gather, as they did every place, just to watch us go out and do what we were doing on our thingamabobs, as they called them. Stayed in Reunion for quite a while, and the cyclone had come and brought surf. Surf that we never knew existed, probably nobody else ever dreamed about. And as we sat that last night, watching the waves break on the breakwater, we thought about our fantastic trip to Reunion, and wondered where we would go next. So we left Reunion and flew to Madagascar. And when you fly there, you arrive in the center of the island. And the cheapest way to the east coast is by train. It's an all-day journey with some nice jungle scenery and some interesting stops. And every day is market day in Madagascar. Madagascar has the largest open-air marketplace in the world. And you can buy absolutely everything there.
Get all that umbrellas up there.
That's to keep you out of the hot, hot sun in this country. Some of the people look like they're in their pajamas all day. You can buy everything from flowers to a wife in the marketplaces. And we made some pretty hot bargains. We were more interested in getting to the coast.
Yeah, how's that surf over there?
Well, this is just part of the 1,000-mile coastline that we saw on our way to Tamatave, the coastal city. Here we hired Renee a taxi and headed north into some uncharted lands to take a look at the beaches. Every place we went in Madagascar, people were very friendly, but we were always worried about one thing, the sharks. All the way from Australia, people had told us about the sharks in Madagascar, and we thought they'd been kidding us, Nappy. But when we got there, people saw our surfboards and called them skis and said, "You don't dare go in the water."
You get orange pants, man.
There were miles and miles of uncrowded, deserted beaches. But finally we saw something that really psyched us out.
that fish pond?
That's a people pond. They got these all over Madagascar. That's to keep the people in and the fishies out. No matter where you go in Madagascar, if there's not a stone wall, you don't go in the water. Renee got scared even looking outside of it. And so we cut our trip a little short, and we headed back to Tamatave.
You guys chicken out, eh?
No, we come all this way to the fantastic country of Madagascar, and we had to catch at least one wave. So we unloaded the boards with the help of Renee, who didn't even know what they were for, and the kids who didn't know what was happening on the beach. And we flipped a coin, and I praised Gaylord's surfing ability, and he praised mine, and he won the flip of the coin and caught the only wave ever ridden in Madagascar.
Yes, his chance to turn on, eh?
And so with that, and we're still alive, let's leave and take a break for intermission.
Hey, wait, not yet. They must be Africa. Heard they got a place over there at Cape St. Francis where they got that perfect wave.
This is it, Nappy. We finally made it to South Africa. One place that we really were looking forward to going. We'd heard so much about Cape St. Francis, the fantastic breaks. The first guy to check in with there is John Whitmore. John's been on the surf scene longer than anyone else in Africa, and he knows the place is better than everyone else. John takes us over onto the Indian Ocean side of South Africa to a place called Muizenberg. It's a long beach, and we're surprised to see so many surfers down here in South Africa after coming from the islands in the Indian Ocean where there was virtually no one else around.
Yeah, this guy pretty good surfer, Nick.
Oh, there are lots of good surfers. This is Jonathan Palmer. He was only 14 at the time and one of the best in South Africa. Well, John Whitmore took us over to the other side of the Cape Peninsula, over to the Atlantic coast.
Yeah, the water looked pretty cold, boy.
It is cold, but the surfers are hot. And Donald Parman, Jonathan's brother, gets it on. Look at the kelp there, Nappy.
Yeah, just actually, what is that?
You can see how cold the water is. It's down in the 50s. And And we coming from 85, 87 degree water over in the Indian Ocean, this was a little bit too cold for us. But these kids had this place wired.
What are you guys doing over there?
That's a lobster boat. They fish for the Cape lobsters down there. And they bring them in and have to bring their boats right in through the surf. In fact, everybody gets involved in surfing down there. It's a big thing.
Gee, I thought only Hawaii had lobster. That guy right on, boy.
Here's Donald Parman doing his thing down in the cold water of Cape Town at Kamiki Beach. Really progressive surfers down there, and I think they're going to come up and do some good things in some of the future world contests. Well, we were ready to leave Cape Town, so we came to say goodbye to John. He had pointed out spots on the map where we should check, and headed us up on our way to Cape St. Francis. But along the way, there are lots of interesting things to see and do. The Yorkshire and Ostrich Farm is just one of the things that everybody should stop and see. This is where they grow ostriches for their feathers. It's $1 million industry. And it's open for the public to see.
You even can ride them at it, thing.
Yeah, and that's how the ostrich got its long neck. They use the feathers in the burlesque shows in Paris. And the ones with lesser quality they use for the good dusting mops. And David was up on his ostrich. Now if you can't afford a car, you train an ostrich when you're going short in South Africa. Here they go. Nappy, you want to take a bet who's going to win this race?
Yeah, I think the guy in the orange shirt over there.
Oh, no, I got the guy in the white shirt. Hey, come on, brother.
Hey, this guy letting me down. Let's go.
Oh, no. My boy's going to win. Nappy, look at him go. He's in that far corner way out in front of you. Hey, hey.
Boy.
Well, I lost that one. Well, let's push on. South Africa's a big place and it's got lots of driving. And we were anxious to get to only one spot. We'd heard about it and we'd seen pictures about it. And this was Cape St. Francis, the home of that 7-mile perfect wave breaking on this point. There in the background of the sand dunes, Nappy.
These I gotta see, boy.
Oh, at this point we were so excited. But there it is, Cape St. Francis.
I gotta see, but it looks like I'm gonna see it.
Well, this is how it breaks about 300 days out of the year. And as far as the 7-mile point, Nappy, it was only about a mile long. And we were mighty disappointed. We waited there all day and drove finally to the next little bay, Jeffreys Bay, 20 miles away.
Oh, up there, get plenty of surfers too over there.
Oh, there's some fantastic surfers, and this is Gavin Rudolph, the junior champ. Gavin goes out at the point at Jeffreys Bay and shows us how it's done. Gavin's only about 17 years old, yet he's fast becoming one of the top surfers in South Africa, and you can see why.
The guy really having fun, boy, out there.
It's a good little break, Nappy, and it's not crowded. The water's not too cold because it's further up into the Indian Ocean coast.
On that 8 deep.
And Gavin Rudolph is doing his thing. This is Dennis Manfield's on a real short board. And this day was small, but he's ridden it with some size. And he can really handle a short board.
A lot of pohakos in the front there.
Nappy, the whole point breaks on rocks. And Jeffreys Bay is one long, rocky point. But that's why it keeps its shape. There's never a sand bottom to do much changing. Dennis Manfield finds that walking over the rocks is no easy thing. And it's not easy on your boards either.
A lot of things I bet, boy.
But Gavin surfed the place so much he never even thinks about them.
That guy's right on, boy. What do you call that, roller coaster, eh?
That's it. Well, this is where we'd come, to Jeffreys Bay. We were really disappointed with Cape St. Francis, and most of the guys we talked to had been too. A little further out is a spot called Tubes, and Gavin paddles out to sample some of the waves that just barely are breaking at Tubes. When it's a little bit bigger, Tubes is really rideable, and it really lives up to his name. There's Gavin with some of his fans looking on. Well, we waited there for some big surf, and every day we kept driving back to Cape St. Francis to check it out, but it never happened. And finally, the swell came up at Jeffreys Bay, and we saw while the Australians who were there visiting told us, stick around Jeffreys Bay, and that's where the surf will be. These Australians had been there for about 2 months. They were riding Jeffreys Bay out here at a place called Super Tubes.
Hey, look at that, boy. That look good.
This is a place that breaks much more consistently than Cape St. Francis, and on this day, Cape St. Francis would probably just be barely breaking. These guys surfed this spot when it was 8, 10, 12 feet. And they kept going back to Cape St. Francis hoping to find those perfect waves. But they found nothing better than this. The waves are so fast and so powerful and so long that without the really fast boards, sometimes you just got eaten up. Let's look at Gordon Merchant visiting Australian.
Spend time, no time to play around. You gotta just make it, boy.
And there are the rocks. The rocks are so bad out here at Super Tubes that when it was really big and it broke further out, some of the boys even wore tennis shoes to get over the jagged rocks.
This guy all power already.
No, these are some of the Australian boys coming in. On another day when the surf had gone down, we found the waves still pouring through, these fine, clean little tubes still breaking. We couldn't believe it, neither could these Australians. They'd been here for about 2 months and they'd had surf like this to themselves very consistently. Here we were in Africa, the dark continent, but there's nothing dark about this.
Hey, who these guys?
Oh, these are just some of the same Australian boys. Every place we went in the world, where we were with other surfers, we found a handful of Australians, or sometimes more than a handful. Jeffreys Bay, South Africa. And look at those lines.
Yeah, boy.
And look at those rocks. This is what we'd come all this way to see, and we weren't disappointed.
About catching hell well out there.
Well, we stayed in Jeffreys Bay for quite a while, and finally we decided it was time to push on up the coast. We said goodbye to our friends and headed on in a bus given to us courtesy of Volkswagen of South Africa. As you head inland, the scenery begins to change.
Yeah, how about this guy? That guy Papa, oh, burn, eh?
Here we enter some of the exciting country of Africa. When you think of Africa, you think of wild animals. And this is what we came to see as much as the surf. We were on our own safari. And we couldn't believe it to see these giant monsters in the bush right outside our car. You've got to be quiet because 2 weeks before, we'd heard about a Volkswagen that had gotten a little silly with these big critters. And they had stomped it just like a bottle.
You look vicious, boy, eh?
Well, you don't want to fool around. And as we were taking pictures of these, we suddenly found that we had gotten ourselves right in the middle of a herd of elephants. And since they had calves, we were told to be very careful. And as they come up behind you, you've got to look out. We were scared, but we didn't know what to do. There were elephants in front of us and elephants behind us. And all we knew is that they start waving their ears, then there's trouble. That means they're mad. And so we got out of that one and headed on. All through the countryside, we saw wildebeest and zebras. And we're just amazed at the wide open places we saw. When you drive through this part of Africa, you look for the water holes. And in the late afternoons, everything comes down to drink. Wildebeest, giraffes, it's like you're right there in the middle of a Walt Disney film, but it's all real. They're all right there. But we finally had to leave the country, and we come into Durban. And what a contrast. From the jungle and wild animals roaming around to Durban and South Beach. And a swell pouring in off the pier.
Like you hear a typhoon over there.
Up here in Durban, the water's warmer. There's Kino paddling out. These are some of the Aussies we met in Durban. Every place we went in Nappy, there are Aussies. Aussies all over the place. That's Mooch on the yellow board. And that's Kino. Oh, look out.
Yeah, boy. They're pretty crowded now.
Durban's a big city and it's a lot of fun. It's kind of an international city down in South Africa. And this is young Mike Esposito surfing.
Better watch out for these guys, get a hook on you.
It's dangerous surfing off the pier, and you don't shoot that one. And as the sun goes down, the water's still warm, and they keep right on surfing. There's Mike Esposito paddling out.
One of these guys so good, they practice like hell, boy.
Mike Esposito. A junior South African surfer. This is George Thompson, 4-time South African champ. Again. Mike's a junior surfer down there, and he really knows how to do it.
Hey, Nicky, you can see this thing broken, I think.
Hey, you gotta put in another dime, pal.
Oh. Gee, hey, where you folks went next place?
We went to Europe after Africa.
Yeah. Gee, that's where they get all the bikinis, eh?
Oh, that's the place,
With
pal.
the dime, brother.
Well, Nappy, I'll tell you, there are 2 different Europes we found. One was a slow-paced, more traditional kind of life still to be found.
You mean like Hawaii used to be?
That's right. Here we found the Europeans taking in their part in their old age sports.
Hey, look at that boom, man. Give on, brother.
We found quaint villages nestled against rugged sea coasts.
Ah, windmill.
Yes, an omnipresent reminder of Portugal's old world ways. We found bustling little fishing villages and ports, dotting the Portuguese and more Spanish coasts. Deserted beaches.
I had a hard time finding one deserted beach down here.
There are not many left. The other Europe is the modern, jet-set, bikinied, high-density vacation Europe.
How about that, boy?
We found these pockets of humanity everywhere, but for a surfer, the ultimate in this kind of life is Biarritz, the renowned French Basque resort town on the Atlantic.
Those guys giving them up there too, eh?
But our first stop in Europe was down in Portugal. We knew that there was supposed to be surf here. We'd seen it in magazines, and so we headed off for Lisbon. But we were greeted with some onshore conditions. In Lisbon, we picked up our surfer magazine, found the spot right there, and we sat there and waited. We waited for about 2 weeks for the waves that we saw in the magazine, but nothing came through except these mighty heavy Lisbon combers. Finally, we got so tired waiting, we went out to catch some of these giants.
King size, boy.
But all good things had to come to an end, Nappy.
Hey, who that guy?
That's the Lisbon Shore Patrol, and he blew his whistle and summoned me in, and with some heavy duty explaining and a few local guides giving some interpretation, he put it across that surfing is off limits in Lisbon. He pointed at my board, pointed at me, and said, "Pally, any more of that stuff and you're going to jail."
She's just like the lifeguards we get down here.
So, they knew about surfers in Portugal, but we decided we'd head on. We loaded up our kids into our vans, packed up our boards and cameras, and went off looking for some more excitement. The Portuguese countryside is beautiful, and the people just so friendly. As we're driving through a town, we saw this sign, and this is what we wanted to see.
Got a boom again.
The Portuguese fight bulls like no place else in the world. They pad the horns and they fight the bulls horseback. They never kill the bulls in Portugal, but they give the bulls a pretty darn good chance to kill people.
Baka with vicious, boy.
They breed these bulls specially for the occasion.
I rather surf, I tell you, man.
And they breed the horses especially to fight these Portuguese bulls. And the crowds love them.
These guys, what they do? Get them mad.
They get the bull pretty mad, and then they poke it in the back with these little tiny spears. And when the bull is thoroughly enraged, then comes the action that everyone comes to see.
Should have taken your Hawaiian spear off them.
Sometimes the bull gets the best of the horses. And sometimes the horses get the best of the bull. But this is the action, Nappy. These are the boys that take more cuts than riding Waimea. The point is to taunt the bloke and to get as close as you can before he charges.
I like brave guy, that guy. Ooh, look at that bugger, man. Give on, bull. Take a lot of guts, though, Nick.
Yeah, worse than riding Waimea. But the hero is the guy who can grab the bull by the tail, and then everyone splits out. Hey, wait for me.
The guy, he didn't know where he coming or going that bull.
Well, they finally save him by letting a bunch of cows in, and that changes the bull's mind pretty fast, and he follows them out of the ring. So we headed on. This time we're going to look for some surf up on the North Spanish coast. And we found lots of nice little bays, small waves, with no one out. And we'd stop occasionally just to get wet and catch a wave like this one as we worked our way to the Spanish coast towards the French border.
Hey, bro. What you doing, picking flowers or what?
And so we pushed on towards France. Our next stop was Biarritz, the surfing capital of Europe. Its social center is the beach at Côte de Basque. The day begins quietly at Côte de Basque. And there's no problem getting a wave there if you're up before 8 o'clock.
We come here every year. One must be seen in Biarritz in the summer.
Hey, who's that talking?
Sounds like one of the French aristocrats.
Of course, it has not always been this way. Biarritz was once a simple fishing village until Napoleon's sister-in-law took a dip in 1807. Since that time, it has grown to be one of Europe's premier resorts.
How come this place is so popular?
It's got the warmest water and some of the best surf in Europe, Nappy. Surfers touring Europe will stop by for a day or two, and others will come for the whole summer, which they'll spend mostly sitting on the beach of the wall.
There has always been a sizable foreign population enjoying the delight of Biarritz. The Russians had their day at the turn of the century, then the British, and recent years the American.
Ooh, are those guys for real? Cut back, roller coasters, 360, sag release, spinners. Go, bro, give 'em.
They sent this guy out to learn how to surf, and here he is in his 4th week.
But it is not anymore like the old days. The people come in droves, motor camp proliferate, surfboards are everywhere, and the traffic is just terrible.
Yeah, the traffic out in the water is pretty bad too. In the early 60s, you knew all the visiting surfers by name, because there weren't very many. But 1969, 70, And after that, if you counted up the bodies on a typical day at Côte de Basque, you find more foreigners than French, and mostly from California. And here he is in his 5th week.
Like even on the slacky, eh?
Most of the action takes place out of the water, Nappy, with all kinds of people, like this international band of hippies.
Hey, the Hawaiian watch hand, boy. They're all here, eh? Them guys up there. How these guys, they talk English, ne?
Well, we found out that these guys were from Laguna Beach.
Hey, what's these kind of guys, boy? How's that slacky you hear 'em?
And these were some visiting Americans who'd bought motorcycles and were just on their way down to running the bulls in Pampeluna to rumble with the Spaniards.
But we still have the good life here. It is conservative and very fashionable. The only difference is that it is now more private than before.
That's French champ Jean-Marie Latico on one of the better days we saw. But Biarritz does have some good surf. And here's Jean-Marie back in 1963. Surfing a break that no longer exists, the old La Barre. Since then, a breakwater next to it has been extended.
And one more surfing spot killed by man.
True, Nappy, but luckily this one produced a new break a couple hundred yards down the beach. And the new La Barre can be even better than the old one.
The typical French surfer is not a fanatic like some of the American I have seen. He does not arise at the crack of dawn to be in the water alone. He likes to surf with his companion. And when noontime comes, everyone will go for lunch, of course. And if the surf is good, oh well, c'est bien dommage, they will be back after lunch.
And so Gaylord and I waited around, waiting to see the new La Barre break, like the old La Barre used to. But while we were there, this never happened. We waited on the wall and met Charles Hall from Cornwall, England, who began to tell us about surf in his home country.
Oh, this is just pathetic. Without a doubt, England's far better. England is a small country and everything's a rush. I come on out here to Biarritz because things are slower. This place can be good. Last year it was absolutely tremendous. But anyway, I'm heading straight back to England. It should take me about 12 hours up to Dieppe, about 4 hours across, then about 6 quick hours straight on down to Cornwall. Should just make the surf before hitting the pub. So back I go. Not too many problems really, just stash my board into my summer home. Pretty comfy in here with a good sprung bed. Cheers now, see you in England.
Cheerio, Charlie boy. We'll see you in England.
I bet they'll never make it. Pity really, it's the only place. We've got everything in Cornwall. Sex, surf, sun. Now what more could anyone ask for?
How about some primo beer, brah?
So in England we have pubs. Most pubs usually serve light snacks, some even serve hot meals, and quite frequently one spends a whole evening in a pub. The age limit in England is 18 for drinking, and no one under the age of 14 is allowed into a pub.
Those guys really suck 'em up over there.
Everything south of the Tamar River is Cornwall. It's a grand place steeped in tradition. St. Michael's Mount, one of the centres of smuggling in pre-Roman days. Most goods on their way from Ireland over Cornwall stored at Michael's Mount. Surprisingly, for an island race, swimming is probably the most popular sport of all. Hence the rapid growing enthusiasm for surfing. On the Cornish north coast we have excellent surf, most of the year round as well. All the breaks in Cornwall are beach breaks, but there are reef breaks and point breaks in South Wales, and hundreds of miles of unexploited surf in Ireland.
Well, we finally did make it to England and met Charles at Cornwall. He took us to a place which he said had excellent waves but was rarely surfed. It was called Penhale, and we soon found out why nobody surfed it very often. It was England's answer to the trestles.
I don't know, we should just be able to sneak through this little lot.
But it takes more than just a few soldiers to keep the dedicated surfers like Charles and his friend Mike away from the surf.
Ah, you don't want to worry about that. These army people are only little children.
Undaunted by that brutal display of power, our fearless heroes push on to the surf.
Charles, you guys not scared him?
But by the time they got close to the target, the onshore winds had come up.
Too bad, no way.
You guys better watch out. The guy gonna spark you.
Yeah, and the battle's on. This live but courageous infiltrators trying to outwit, overpower, and escape from the tyrannical but ruthless forces of the Queen.
I say there, troops. We must stop these surfers for the honor of God, country, and Queen.
But the good guys win again. And we bid farewell to the general, wished him better luck next time, and off we went. Some of the roads in Cornwall tend to be a bit narrow. St. Agnes was the quaint little town where we stayed in Cornwall. It's got a cozy little beach, which occasionally has some good waves. This is typical of the Cornish coast. There's a pretty good swell running that day, and St. Agnes is protected, and on this day most of the other beaches were closed out.
Nice place, that boy, eh?
The kayak man and his launching crew. Notice the full wetsuit, and right there it's the middle of the summer. And the crowd is stoked. There goes Charles of England with his Cornwall cutout.
How do you think? Easy for steer?
Not too easy, you don't put any skeg on it. And if you're not careful, you end up going sideways.
I never ever had known that England had get surfing.
Yeah, and we were surprised too, to find out in our 10 days there that there was always a swell of some kind, and that there were so many surfers. These guys even surf right through the winter, in freezing cold conditions, but it was cold enough there right in the middle of the summertime. So we finally left Cornwall, its beautiful sunsets, its surf and pubs and people, when we learned from Charles that a Boer would be working the last couple days in July. We'd seen Rodney Sumter's pictures of it and had to have a go for ourselves. Couldn't get Charles to leave sunny Cornwall for the muddy Severn River, but he did tell us about it before we left.
About 2 dozen times in a year, there occurs a bore on the River Severn. The Severn Bore is not a wave. It's a great high tide, a sheer wall of water. 1 minute as you watch the river heading on to sea, there's a hiss, a roar, a turbulence, and the whole river changes its direction. And the whole ocean floods the banks and will carry anything in its path at about 12 miles an hour. When this wave occurs at anything over 4 feet, it can be heard for about a mile. This phenomena can be a beautiful, amazing thing. every large bore, the master of the Severn River has to take a barge out, either against it or with it, depending upon the size, in order that that barge won't break its moorings. To ride this wave, to say the least, could be a very, very dangerous experience. It has been known to be 14 feet high. The most unnerving feeling about the bore is sitting out there waiting for the wave. You look down the river and you can't see a thing. All is calm and you're slowly drifting out to sea. For the surfer, of course, the difficult part is to catch the wave. And unless you know all the depths of the river, it's virtually impossible to be able to predict how the wave will break. If you're too close to the center of the river, you might easily miss it. Suddenly you hear a faint noise, and your heart starts beating faster. There it is, and just this one war, only one war. It's 100 yards away. When do you start paddling? Now? It would be a waste. In 10 seconds' time? You don't know. If you're too close to the bank, you might be picked up by the wave and thrown headlong into a field, and you're left in the turbulence 100 miles from home. The bore, hissing and roaring like an express train, ripping up the banks, carrying before it dead and alive animals, all sorts of debris, dead rats, trees, tree stumps, churns up the mud, old cars, maybe people. Here's one.
That you guys... Yeah, that's us, Nappy. We finally did get a wave. This is about the last place that you could catch it. But then getting out is another problem down here. But we come pretty far around the world, Nappy, and we'd ridden this break, one of the most fantastic experiences we'd ever had. And we were getting homesick, and we started planning our trip back to Hawaii, flying straight across the states.
Hey Nick, we had some good surf down here, you know.
Hey, there sure isn't any surf now.
Gee, all you gotta do is take a look up here.
Let me see. Hey, I don't have a dime.
Wait.
Yeah, Nick, we had some all-time wave over here. And we had some all-time surfers like Joey Cabell. Joey was one time at Makaha, 3-time winner.
He's also won the Duke contest too. And he's known as one of the outstanding speed surfers and innovators of surfboard design today.
The guy is terrific, boy.
He can work a wave going right as well as he can left.
He raised a beard now.
Look at the size of that wave that Joey's riding.
Yeah, see what I mean by speed, boy? I bet you know where we at now, Makaha. A lot of glamour at Makaha.
It looks like the usual crowd down there too.
Yeah, that's the usual happy crowd. He's one of the local surfers down there. It's one place everybody knows about, Makaha.
And everyone knows about that backwash too, don't they?
Oh yeah.
There's looks like Rolf Arness from California.
Yeah, boy, that's it.
And Corky Carroll.
There's 3 happy surfers over there. Got Beck Opuni in the middle. He's a really good surfer too, Nick.
Watch that re-entry.
He's really giving them. That's George Downing right there.
And there's George out in the surf too, isn't it, Nappy?
That's him. Always got that hand pointed out, you don't take notice.
George been on the surfing scene probably longer than anyone else in Hawaii.
Oh boy.
And he's still doing that in some pretty big waves. And he can also do it very good in small surf.
There's Fred Hemmings.
On candid camera.
Candid camera.
And even the best fall down.
Oh yeah.
But they get right back up if they're good.
They never give up, boy. That's Ralph Fanez again, huh?
And he sure handled his surf here in Hawaii this year. For a goofy footer, he tore up these rights as well as anybody's ever done.
Up, down, sideways, you name it, they got them.
Well, Makaha looks like a pretty fun spot, Nappy. It looks like he had some good surf.
Oh, yeah. Makaha is a good place in the winter. But in the summer, you got to go to the South Shore if you want some hot little girls. You know this spot?
Point Panic, huh?
That's the place.
And there's a lot to panic about there, isn't there, Nappy?
Yeah, you got really a lot of things to panic about over here.
Yeah, like the sharks that hang around from the garbage from the fishing boats. And the wall, a stone wall that's always there. See what happens if you don't make the wave. What else do you have to worry about there, Nappy?
Your body surfers, your mat surfers.
And you got other surfers. If you're a mat surfer, you've got to pull out in time. Or at least we hope you get out in time.
See what I mean?
And the body surfers are right in there too. And they've got to watch out for each other as well as the surfers. And they're all looking out for the sharks.
But if you like a little bigger surf, Nick, you know where we all can go now at Waimea Falls.
And right out in the bay from Waimea, it's got some mighty big surf, doesn't it?
Oh boy.
This pours through in the winter months, and you get some 20-foot surf coming through this bay. And what's it take to ride this, Nappy?
Well, it takes no brains, just guts.
Jose Angel, though. It's the guy who's made the North Shore his home and rides Waimea as good as anybody. It's Jose taking off again on the inside.
They're really giving him up. of time you don't go down a beach and pick up bees.
When everything else in the North Shore is closed out, Waimea is breaking. But a few miles down the road is this other spot. You want to tell us about it, Nappy?
I mean, the Banzai pipeline.
The pipeline breaks on a very shallow bottom. And before you go out, you think about it for a while.
You gotta do a lot of thinking, boy.
You think about the bottom. Before going out, you size up your possibilities for just plain survival. And sometimes they look pretty slim.
You just don't rush into it, you know.
Pipeline, probably one of the hardest breaking waves, fastest breaking waves in Hawaii, is really a test and a challenge. It's been called a mind bender, a board bender, and for sure, Nappy, it's a body bender. When you paddle out, you gotta make sure you don't get caught inside by a set.
Some guys never even stand up.
And if you stand up, some guys never make it much further than the bottom. But when you do make it, when you get locked into one of these waves, Nappy, you really know you've done something. It's coming off the bottom at the Banzai pipeline. There's a lot of G's on you there. Here's a guy that really turns on.
There's the guy Stanley Fox, huh?
Right, and they call him the Savage.
Yeah.
And you can see why, the way he serves the Banzai pipeline.
This guy sleeps over there, I think. I like this guy with the pipe board.
You can really get some speed and ride high on a pipe board. And when you're back inside on a pipe board, you're really way back. The wipeout's hurt.
Yeah.
A lot of times when the guys sitting on the beach see him.
Hey Nick, this guy's going home already, look. If they had stayed, you could have seen some fantastic tubes.
But you're right, Nappy. These sure are some fantastic waves. You can't get much further back inside than that. You're right about another thing too, Nap. We traveled thousands and thousands of miles, and we saw some fantastic countries, but you just don't see waves like the Banzai pipeline. This is it. This is the ultimate, and it's why people come from all over the world to ride this break. getting way back inside. An incredible wave. Well, Nappy, we surfed our way completely around the world, and here we are back in Hawaii where it all began. So until we get the wanderlust again, I'd say our trip, like this surfer's, is going to come to an end.